Hi, I'm Michael Westgate. Thank you for joining me. I've helped people with chronic pain for over 2 decades. I aim to help you say goodbye to pain and hello to a fully lived life.
How to choose a pocket practice. Do I choose one or a series of pocket practices?
So the answer is yes to everything. So you can do the sequences if it appeals to you, or you can pick and choose depending on what your body tells you. And that's the main thing, is to trust your body's response. If it likes it, it says yes, then trust it. And it may say no tomorrow, by the way. I've had that happen. I've had practices that I love and I feel stressed out and I try it and my body's like, bleh. And so and then I try something else and my body's like, yeah, that's it. Let's do that. So it has to be kind of a day-to-day, moment-to-moment trusting and a kind of a relationship with your body, literally, where you trust it and say, oh, you don't like that right now. What else can we try? And, this almost like you're talking to a pet or a child, because it has elements like that in it. And then it will, by the way, it will answer if you're sincerely asking. It just won't answer with words. It's going to give you a sense. Like you might say, I want ice cream right now, or, I want to go for a walk, or I wish I didn't want to talk to anyone right now, or some sort of sense, or I want to do that other exercise you did with a while back. That's the dialogue that can help speed this up. It sounds absurd because in the modern world, we're told not to do that, but it's a real shame, because your body's wisdom is one hell of a resource. Once you befriend it, becomes your best buddy in the end.
I get anxiety when flying and experiencing turbulences. What pocket practice can I do that will help me?
Next time you hit turbulence, maybe you can try the circle breathing or any of the things we did, and see if your body is helped by that. And just say, hey, maybe we could try this. And the during, right? But like I said, sometimes during is harder because you're triggered and your body's just taking the reins, and you're like, you have no choice.
I enjoy the tapping, squeezing, and breathing exercise in your guided somatic exercises video. Can I also practice those to help me sleep?
Absolutely. Yes. Because you think about it, the last thing you want to do is to be in a state of distress at night, because what'll happen is it'll come up again, and that tends to wake you up, or be a nightmare, or you just wake up unrested. Because being unfragmented would be a good idea for any sort of time of rest, or action even, right? And you want to be as embodied as possible, because it is that fragmentation that we're trying to ease, right? We're trying to get away or get back into ourselves. And, eventually, by the way, we want to be okay enough in ourselves that we can tolerate feelings, sensations, and emotions that we have put off for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it depends on how old you are, and be able to be with them so they can be properly processed. And that's another subject, but this is the ground for that. This actually can help do that gradually, but it also can help you tolerate more intense feelings without running for your life from them. And it's a basis to that, for that ability.
One of my major concerns is that I tend to avoid sleep. The avoidance intensifies as the evening goes on. What pocket practices can I do to help me with sleep avoidance?
Being a very familiar person with that problem, what I recommend is that you try to do it quite a bit before sleep is on the menu. So, like, in other words, if you typically go to sleep at 11 o'clock, maybe you should do it at 9, because otherwise the system starts, because this is my experience, and then you guys can tell me if you have a similar one. As I get closer to sleep, when I get to the sleep time, if I'm not all right already, I'm triggered, right? So I can't, I just get gripped by this avoidance thing. Very hard to break without help from someone else, and even that doesn't always do it. So if I do it beforehand, and this is part of what I try to do with the evening routine, is I try to do things that are soothing before bed, including these things. And if I do that well, then often I can just go lay down and turn the light off, instead of figuring out 20,000 different reasons why I have to read something or watch something or do another task or do an email or some stupid thing like that, that gets, kind of subverted, because now the system is like, I'm okay. Or even radically enough, maybe I can actually face the feeling I'm feeling that is disturbing and do something like these practices, or maybe these practices plus journaling. Journaling tends to help me. But again, all this is better for me before the time of sleep, not at the time, because then it's kind of like one of those things where you say, I want to stop drinking, and every time I step into a bar, I have to drink. And so maybe not trying to stop that after you step into the bar, but maybe try to do practices so you never go in the bar in the first place. And then if you end up in the bar, then you do the practices afterwards so you can deal with the feelings of, oh shit, I did it again, sort of thing. That's my experience. And of course, like I said, maybe now and then, especially if you practice a lot, you'll be able to catch yourself in the middle of something and go, yeah, I don't want to do this. I think I'll breathe instead, or I'll go jump in the ice shower, in the cold shower, whatever you have to do to break the cycle. And then you can, okay, I that was close, sort of thing.
I find it difficult to practice the body scan meditation, and I feel some form of difficulty in my system when doing the pocket practices. Am I doing them wrong? What can I do to deal with this?
I mean, there's no right or wrong way, right? I mean, just think of this as playing the sandbox. I mean, this is what we're doing. We're playing the sandbox right now. We're seeing, what does it feel like when I, put my hand all the way in the sand and then cover it with more sand? And what does it feel like when I put the sand, I let it go out through my fist? And what is it like when I throw it on my friend and then they get upset at me? I mean, this is how we need to be to find the way, right? And the way is it's pretty much nonverbal, because the system that we're talking to, the system that we are relating to, is a primal system that doesn't have words, but it speaks in sensations, symptoms, and urges, right? So, or avoiding, the urge is either to avoid or go towards or be disgusted or whatever it is. And what we're trying to do in this practice is to build your vocabulary of sensations and responses that allows you to understand what the body is actually telling you. And we in the process, we're actually calming ourselves. But one of the reasons that it's important to do this is you can't really hear it clearly if you're all spazzed out. Because when we're spazzed out, what's happening is that primal system has put you into survival states that are very low resolution. It's super low resolution, because when you're angry, you only see one thing, right? You're that thing that's a danger, right? That's it. There's no subtlety. It's all black and white. It's the enemy and it's me against the enemy, or me and my colleague, my tribal people against the other enemy. And when we're running from something, it's that thing is a predator and I'm running from it. And it's not even like, oh, I'm triggered. You don't even think that. As far as your nervous system is concerned, it's right about this, because it's very binary. And the same thing is that when you're frozen or shut down, everything is very narrow, very, very narrow in its perception. So we need to bring ourselves back to these states of safety and ease so that we can actually have some sort of awareness of what's being said. My experience is that when I'm triggered, I can't even remember half of what I know about anything. Like, it's just because it's so gripping that you're in danger. It's like, the alarm. Imagine if these alarm bells going off. That's what's happening. And how much can you hear when a fire alarm goes off in a building? The thing is freaking loud, and your whole system's like, Well, that's the same thing that happens inside ourselves when we are triggered or upset. Is that the alarm is going off, and it's absolutely overwhelming, because it needs to be, because if it's actually a real emergency, if you don't pay attention, you're dead.
During the circle breathing exercise, I noticed that I can breathe through the area where it's more painful compared to the areas with no pain. Can you provide an explanation to this?
I can relate to what you're saying, because I notice that when I do breath practices or even ice baths, when I'm really stressed out, the ice bath is really appealing. I know that it's going to help. My body's like, hell yeah, let's get in there. And when I'm not that stressed, sometimes it's like, I don't know about this, because it's, it's not, well, it still helps, right? And again, there's a conversation you're having with I call you primal guardian is my new nickname for it. It has an opinion. It expresses it all the time, whether or not you're listening or not.
Can I do the tapping simultaneously instead of one after the other?
I have done that intuitively before and I forgot. And I like it way better than the single stuff, right? So like if I do this, or, that does it for me. This one-sided thing is kind of annoying to me. So that I really appreciate that piece that you just added. So yeah, like that. Okay, I have a new practice now.
During one of the exercises, I inhaled on my heartbeat and then exhaled on the part of my body that was hurting. Can you explain if this is beneficial for my well-being? Is it considered a pendulation exercise?
Right, because you can stay on it, but you still do a pendulation within that space, which by the way, I only learned that recently by something I was reviewing that Maggie, did I say her name is Maggie Smith? Is that get that name right? So I'm not embarrassed. Maggie Phillips. Now I'm glad I checked. And Peter Levine that was in one of their exercise routines. Peter introduced that, and I was like, I've never heard that before. And I tried it, and I thought it was fantastic because it's almost like a mini pendulation within one space instead of going far and wide, right? You're going and you're kind of bouncing up and down on that spot, and then that I have actually find that really helps a lot when I'm stressed. You focus on the area of distress, and then you kind of do a motion there, and then that thing starts to go, because it kind of has some tension in a good way. So it's not, because what I've discovered in body scan is if I'm upset in the wrong way, body scan is torture, because it's just focus, 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 focus. Where this sort of, again, it's kind of like that thing we were doing like this. It's rocking, right? Basically, it's a rocking. It's a wave. And by the way, that's the whole thing, is that when we're alive and connected, we're in a wave pattern. When we're traumatized or stuck, we're in a rigid, stuck pattern. And so what all of the things we just did is putting the flow back into the system. And we all can relate to that. I mean, everyone knows what it is to be stuck, right? Either in anger or freeze or upset or disappointment or boredom or whatever it is, or pain, right? You can have this pain that won't go away. And then when the flow comes back in, it's like, and then you feel totally different. And even in a relationship, I mean, you get in a tangle with your partner, there's a stuckness, right? I mean, there's no flow at all. It's like, and everyone's kind of, and they come back to that relational place, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, okay, we're back here again. And everyone's like, oh, okay, we're not, there's no more, the war has ended for the moment, at least. If you found this content helpful, please like and subscribe. You can look forward to more videos about how to overcome chronic illness and chronic pain.